30 years in one profession is a long time, but nearly 40 years with the Saskatoon Police Service, seeing many changes over that career, is retiring Superintendent Brian Shalovelo. I've asked him to come on the show today and just give us a little bit of a snapshot of what that period of time looked like for him and all of those opportunities that he's seen go by on that short period of time. Brian, thanks so much for making some time today.
Thank you very much, Randy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with your interest in policing going back some years ago. How did that start and what drew you to the force?
I was always interested in policing. I could see the similarities between sports and policing and leadership, and so I was always interested in policing. When I was 15 years old, my dad knew a guy who was on the Saskatoon Police Service, and we went over there for a cup of coffee one day, and he talked about being an honorable profession, being a profession that really it's never the same. You never know what you're gonna get at when you get to work. You never know what that day is going to bring, and that sort of change, um, difference in the usual definition of a 8 to 5 job really attracted me, and so he gave me some advice, and a few years later I applied to the Saskatoon Police Service.
So, your career started as a young man, you entered the service, and the role of police then mid-career and now, what's changed with the role of policing?
I think the policing has changed in terms of how expansive we become. We are so much more part of the community. We're involved in so many distinct initiatives within the community. When I started just about 37 years ago, there was 3 areas that you could work when you're in uniform. It was patrol, responding to calls for service. The uniformed police officer that you see on the street. We had guys or guys and gals who were just starting in the school program, and you could work in the traffic section. Now there is so many different areas that young constables, young officers can be involved in, from being on our detective side to being in investigations, plain clothes, surveillance, drugs, so many things that we couldn't do in the past. And I think that's really the changing role and the specialization of policing in a modern day society. The specialization, the knowledge, the days of being a jack of all trades, like when I started, it's not there anymore, quite frankly. We need smart young individuals in tune with the community, in tune with their professional commitments as police officers. We need the best of this community, and so as a result, I think that's probably the biggest change. And the second of all, I think the biggest change has been how we are involved with the community. The amount of community things that we do now, the amount of sections that are dedicated to community consultation, communication, has grown exponentially since when I started.
So when you talk about the best in policing, and we have a number of you as officers that have served over the years, but as a graduate, distinguished graduate from the FBI National Academy about 5 years ago or so, what was that experience like to bring that level of service back to your community here in Saskatoon?
You know, just to give some background to your listeners, Randy, and people tuning in, the FBI National Academy is a 10 or 11 week professional development course that is an invitation only from the FBI themselves. It's held in Quantico, Virginia, which is just 34 miles out of Washington, D.C. And it's, as I said, people have to apply to this, and then they take from the thousands of resumes from across the United States as well as across the world. They pick and choose the individuals who they invite to the course. There was 230 students in my session. 23 of the 230 students were from the international group, and that included myself and another member from the Toronto Police Service. There was members from Germany, Switzerland, Vietnam. There was people from Hungary, Romania, Lithuania, a real cross section from people from the Middle East. There was a real cross section. So when you broke down and you were taking your classes that are offered by the University of Virginia as a professional development and that has accreditation attached to this course, you're deeply embedded into what policing is and what policing isn't. And when you have these discussions with not only our American friends and the difference in laws and culture down there and history, demonstration protests, and then along with people from the international group, when I'm talking to someone from Japan or Vietnam or Germany or my friends from the Middle East, Jordan, Kuwait, you really bring that sort of perspective back to Saskatoon. And throughout your 11 weeks that I was there, is you have an understanding of the role of police in our community, what we can do, what we can't do. It's some areas that we lead, other areas that we follow. And at the end of the day, I think it really cemented my personal philosophy of policing in the community, and that is really community safety first, community safety together. So it was an excellent opportunity to represent not only the men and women of the Saskatoon Police Service, but to bring back some of those lessons learned. Some of the classes that I did take of interest was like contemporary issues in policing. What's going on in the United States and internationally, and what are some of the challenges to policing, generally? Data-driven analytics. Where are we going as far as data and getting out of the way of anecdotal information as far as driving our decisions? Thirdly, I took a class in the future of policing. Where are we going in 5, 10, 15 years? The use of robotics, artificial intelligence, things like that. Leadership. There's 2 classes that I took on leadership, psychology of leadership and executive leadership. And the whole issue in terms of leading not only your police comrades and your police team, but also leadership within the community as the police themselves. So at the end of the day, it was a real feather in my cap, if you will, speaking personally. But at the end of the day, I was representing the men and women of the Saskatoon Police Service. And if just a note there, I don't think that Saskatoon takes a back seat to anywhere in North America in terms of direction, mission, objectives, and overall, leadership direction. So I was very glad in 2015 to be able to go. I was lucky enough to be one of 6 distinguished graduates from a class of 230 students, and I attribute that to the experiences that I had at the Saskatoon Police Service.
So I could probably take another session with you and talk about all of the depth that you bring with 21 years lecturing at the Saskatoon Police College. You've also done some work with the UK and South Africa with the police economics and performance. But at the end of it all, I mean, we're still talking to Brian Shalovelo, a husband, father, and a very active community man in the sense of your involvement with sports as well. What have you done with hockey and women's fastball, softball?
When I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, they were looking for hockey referees, and I can remember refereeing in an outdoor hockey rink, and the parents would have to shovel the rink before the game just so that the kids could play. So I started out there. About 5, 6 years later, one of the officials didn't show up at the old Saskatoon Arena, and I got an opportunity to officiate a junior hockey game. From there, I went on to officiating in the Western Hockey League for about 12 years, and that took me from rinks in Winnipeg, Manitoba, all the way to Portland, Oregon, in the Western Hockey League. I also was involved in officiating at the university level. So I got a really good perspective in terms of decision making and knowledge of the rules, but also feel for the game. So that also links into my policing experience also. On the women's softball side, my sister's softball team didn't have a coach, and I was about 17 years old, and they said either you coach or this group of girls isn't going to be able to play ball. Well, that was about 45 years ago, and I'm still coaching today. I still have we played last night. We have a game tonight, and so I've been involved in the community through sports, and especially on the women's side.
That is just remarkable from not only the length of time, but the quality of what you bring to that game and both games in sports. Thank you for community involvement there. Retiring superintendent, it's hard to say after all these years. But Brian, I want to wish you and your wife and family all the best in your upcoming years. I'm sure your public sector training from Dalhousie will come in handy in your retirement. But I want to wish you the best and thank you sincerely from our community to you and your family for your years of service with the Saskatoon Police Service.
Thank you very much, Randy. I appreciate this time, and all the best to you and your listeners.
Very good. We'll see you around soon, I'm sure. Stay with us, folks. We're going to come right back.